Hi, everyone. Welcome back to CLOSEUP. Sorry, I'm seeing the panelists on the screen, and I'm so excited to see everyone. So I'm Stacey Shoemaker-Rowan. If you haven't been with us all day, I'm the editor-in-chief of Hospitality Design Magazine, the senior vice president of the design group at our parent company Emerald, and I'm your host. And I'm so excited for this topic on wellness. It couldn't be more timely and something that we really are excited to dive into. We feel that every sector of design has a potential effect on wellness. It's so all-encompassing. We can design to enhance it, to promote it, to scale it. It has such value and impact. And so let's dive in. We have incredible humans here today joining us to talk about this topic. Some of my favorites. We have Susan Healy, who is the Executive Director of Design and Construction, Facilities Management Division for Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center. Hi, Susan.
Hi.
So good to see you.
Good to see you too.
We have Carolyn Ames Noble, who's founder of Ames Design Collective and collaborator, and also a collaborator with, founder of Ames Design Collective and also a collaborator at Turf Design, which you just saw their great video, and they are our Day 2 sponsors. So welcome, Carolyn. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much, Stacey, for having me here today.
Kane Sarhan, who is co-founder and CCO of The Well. Hi, Kane.
Hi, Stacey. Nice to see you.
Good to see you. And last but certainly not least, we have Marquise Stillwell, who is founder and principal of Open Box. Hi, Marquise.
Hello, Stacey. Good to see you.
Good to see you, too. And I have to comment, you all have amazing backdrops, so well done on your Zoom game here today. Okay, the pandemic, let's be honest, has reframed our focus on wellness and community for the good, I believe. How has 2020 changed your thinking or motivated you in terms of wellness initiatives? And also at the same time, it's kind of a twofold question. Since wellness can encompass everything, or so much, maybe not everything, but so much, what does wellness mean to you today? So maybe let's start with you, Susan.
I think that really we had been so focused on the physical, and as a cancer center, that's really what we do. But really, as we think back now, especially with all of our frontline healthcare workers, the emotional part of wellness is so key right now. And so we're really thinking about ways to wrap that into the work that we do and support not just the physical being, but the emotional being as well.
Right, which is so important, especially with everything that they're going through. And are you looking at, too, like how the physical how they go together more, too, from a more holistic approach?
Absolutely. We're really trying to fuse the two so that they're seamless, and that both our patients, who are going through probably the most difficult times in their lives, are able to come into our facilities and feel a warm welcome and just kind of a nurturing spirit.
Got it. Thank you. And Carolyn, what about you? What does wellness mean to you today, and what has changed you in the last year in terms of how you incorporate wellness?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for asking this question on wellness and our work. To me, over the last year, I felt that well-being and wellness, before I felt that it was a lot of dialogue, it was a lot of conversation. Now it feels actionable as a result of 2020, and even the last 15 months. I'm a working mother. I have he was 3 at the beginning of this, he's now 4. So working parents throughout all of this is something very personal to me. I'm very interested in that. And then further, I would say more holistically, thinking of our community, even thinking of today's experience, it is very visual. We've spent a lot of time in the last 15 months on screen. And when you think about our spaces, a lot of times they're very visual. So you start to think about the other senses in this space. How could we feel more comfortable? How could we feel safe and secure? These really core inherent things to our person, especially as we're re-engaging and re-emerging into our workplaces or our favorite place to dine out. How do we feel more comfortable? How do we feel more joy? And that really got us on this sort of just place of sensory well-being and sensory integration, that our spaces are not just sight, it's sound. How does it sound? Is a reverberation in the background? Can you hear the person in front of you speak? What does it smell like? Smell is linked to our memory. Is there a memory that you can take away? And again, this idea of conversation leading into action, how can we take this design for senses and sensory well-being and move it forward? So these are a lot of conversations and actions that Turf Design and I have been asking and championing here behind the scenes for the last year or so.
Amazing. And as a mom of 3, thank you for bringing up working mothers, because it's been
and I saw boys. Mine's a boy as well.
Yeah,
so
all
lots
boys.
Yep, energy all day, and we're still at it with where work, so we have that shared commonality there.
Yeah, exactly. Kane, same question to you. What has changed, and how do you define wellness today?
First off, shout out to all the working moms. I've barely been able to take care of myself, so kudos to all of you, for sure. I mean, for me and for the well, it's in our name. Like, wellness has been the center and core of what we do every single day. It's why we get out of bed. It's why we built our company. I think when I look at what's happened to folks over the past 15 months, it's really seeing wellness as really evolved from what is, I think, a lot of times been thought of as a nice to have or a luxury to very much a need to have. And that the pandemic, one of the real sort of, I think, changes that it made for people is them realizing how important just your fundamental health is, and how much of an impact, being healthy or investing in your health and wellness on an ongoing basis or proactively can have in a case of when a pandemic happens, or as we start thinking about stress management, immune support, diet and exercise, all of these things. And I think we've seen that demand and just that interest just skyrocket for us. I think what we've really tried to do is respond in 2 ways. And one is really meeting people where they're at. Wellness for a lot of folks can be daunting. It can be overwhelming. It can make you feel worse than it can make you feel better, because if you don't feel like you're doing it right, or if you're not keeping up with the trend, you have that sort of failure mentality. So us is really thinking about meeting folks where they're at, making it approachable, making it easy to understand, boiling it down to really fundamental basics, and making it very enjoyable in the process of thinking about how our spaces and our brand and our products can be, can make wellness feel like not work, but a luxury. And then the second thing for us is thinking about how do we make wellness accessible to everyone, right? I think the last year, outside of just the pandemic health that we've had, we've seen a lot of movements, and I think a lot of us have learned that there is a lot of inequality in this world, and wellness isn't a fair game for everyone. So really looking at our business model to be more approachable, looking at the programs that we offer inside our spaces and online to offer free or complimentary or highly discounted for all and for different communities, and really sort of seeing it as, we've really evolved, I think, over the past year, and always said we wanted to build a healthcare company, not just a wellness company. And I think the past year has really, even if nothing, pushed that motivation for us and helped us sort of focus in on what really matters, like a lot of us have, I think, over the past year.
I love how you said it's from a nice to have or a luxury to a need to have, because I do think it's, people are realizing how much taking care of yourself and how much buildings and everything around you really do affect you. So love that. All right, Marquise, for you, same question. What has changed, and how do you define wellness today?
Yes, thank you for the question. And I'll piggyback on what Kane was saying, because I think that we're in a space that we work in that's about recreating conditions and amplifying conditions, and understanding that the work that we do, whether it's helping to design for better urban living or thinking about justice, that those things are a process, not an outcome. And a lot of times we're trying to check boxes to say, what does equity or justice look like? And what I love about what Kane was just saying is that it's a process. It's this process that you really think about how you're creating conditions for how people walk in. And I think that what we've learned over the last year is that we have to think about the condition for which we live, work, and play, and understanding how do we amplify that to make sure that we all feel safe, that we feel like we're in a healthy place, even if it's just walking down the street. What does a healthy sidewalk look like that has trees on it? Does it have shading? If you look at certain neighborhoods that have lost trees, you can look at it from an environmental standpoint. You can look at it from a building standpoint. What does it feel like in the lobby? What does it feel like to feel welcoming? Like with Susan, what you do, the lobby is part of care. All right. And so as soon as you walk in, how do you actually feel? And that's a part of the conditions that you're going to walk into when you actually meet your doctor. And so for us, it's about thinking about the conditions for which we live, work, and play.
Yeah, love it. Well, you set it up for the next question perfectly. So thank you, Marquise. So it's all about, how big picture, our environment really contributes to our mental health and physical and emotional well-being. Can you elaborate on your favorite example or best practice within your portfolio? And let's switch it up. So Kane, let's start with you. And I think we have some photos to go with it.
We do have some, I think we probably do have some pretty photos. So we, when we design our spaces, and excuse me, with each space, we start with, is this wellness is sort of the first question we have with every decision. And this space isn't ours, but
wait, let's bring up the right one.
Either way.
Yeah, let's bring up the Kane photos. Sorry, team.
But some of our favorite things and some of my favorite things that we do. One, thinking about lighting. Diffuse lighting in every space, because we know that lighting at different times of the day. Different times of the day has different impacts on our actual sensory system, on our stress system. So having really amazing diffuse lighting, working with circadian rhythm lighting in our spaces to bring people up in the morning, bring them down in the evening, allow them to sort of, disconnect from like the blue light digital world that impacts them every single day and come into a really warm and caring space. We also do a lot of work with biophilia and plants. We know that plants have a huge impact on our bodies and on our obviously they keep us alive with oxygen every day. But a room full of plants, actually, there's many studies that show that scientifically they actually, you can see people's blood pressure lower, you can see their stress lower from being surrounded by plants. So we have this amazing biophilic whirlpool in our Connecticut location that's 400 plants that fill this beautiful whirlpool space that you can sit in, which really takes like the healing areas of water and that's on your body and really combines it with plants, which is a super special and amazing thing. We also, and finally, we think about it in everything, so I could talk about this for forever. But another thing that's always been important to me and important to our brand, and even previously in my previous life at One Hotels, is thinking about natural and real materials and the effect that they have on our spaces, right? You can feel, a piece of wood, a crystal, a plant, these are all living things, or were living at one time, and they have energy inside of them. And so really making up our spaces with materials that are real, that are found, that are organic, both from a toxicity perspective, from an off-gassing perspective, yes, but actually more from an energetic perspective, right? And what we often hear when people walk into our space in New York City or our place in Connecticut is like an immediate sense of relief, right? It's like this immediate sense of calming. And that's done through all those senses, from the scent that we're pumping into the air, to the lighting, to the plants, to the textures, to the smiling face that greets you. It really is that 360-degree approach. And we're now just sort of pushing ourselves as we're starting to build new locations around the world, sort of how do we take that to the next level, right? And sort of innovating for ourselves on what the next phase looks like.
Yeah, no, I have to say, I was just at your spot in Connecticut, and it's definitely breathe. Like when you walk in, you just feel like you've been transported somewhere else. So kudos to you. And I think what you've done too, post-COVID and transitioning, which we'll talk about in a little bit, has been pretty amazing as well. So thank you. Susan, what stands out from what you all have been doing?
Yeah, I mean, I think what Kane said is so important, and really the physical environment as they step into our facilities sets the tone for the rest of their journey. And we really want that to be as positive and relaxing as possible, because patients, their caregivers, their friends and family are all coming in at a high anxiety level. And we need to do whatever we can to reduce that. Just even finding their way around creates anxiety. Finding parking, getting into our facilities. Many of our facilities are in an urban setting. And so that becomes a really tough thing to navigate. And by the time they get to our threshold, they're at peak anxiety. So what we want to do is really create very calming spaces, as you can see in these images, that don't feel like a hospital, that don't feel like traditional healthcare as we all think of it. And really trying to break those norms, question why not. We've been engaging a lot of consultants that come from outside the healthcare design sector and bring in some new thinking that really has not been considered in the past. And really what's happening is there's a blurring of lines between healthcare and hospitality and other areas. I mean, when you think about it, hospitals are not solely clinical. We have workplace, we have retail spaces, we have food service, we have educational spaces. So all of those, and public spaces. So healthcare is much more than that clinical thing that we always think of. And so we try to, again, look holistically at the big picture and create a feeling that really is more of a common thread that winds through all of those stops along the patient journey and really helps them to better engage and focus on their wellness.
Yeah, that's amazing. And have you found, because I know with healthcare comes some more technical requirements, right? And what you need to put into the space and the materials you can use in the space. So has that become something that has advanced over the last years and allowed you to kind of rethink these spaces more easily?
Yeah, I mean, I will say it's still challenging because we're required to use bleach cleanable materials, which limits the field of selection. So again, trying to, as Kane said, create this feeling of infusing natural materials, of texture, of the right lighting. And so what I think is very fascinating is that we've been doing that for years to maintain infection control, but now those materials are transitioning into workplace as well, because there are those same considerations about safety and health post-COVID. So we're able to take what we've already learned and easily bring that to other areas within our organization.
Love it. Well, thank you. Marquise, what about you? What you do so many different projects. What do you want to highlight here?
Yeah, I mean, I would say the one project that stands out is a project we just finished in Washington, D.C., the MLK Library, and working closely with the Washington, D.C. community. I think the testament for that was when the community actually saw pieces of the exhibit and pieces of the work that we do in the building, they could see themselves, right? And I think that a testament to the work is making sure that when someone walks into your space, that they can see themselves. So feeling welcome isn't just having a nice chair or a wonderful atmosphere, but it's making sure that they can see that they belong there, and that belongingness is a part of the process of design that we all have to continue to push towards, and not forget that there are places where particularly women and minorities just do not feel welcome. It can feel too masculine in one setting, and it can be unwelcoming for many minorities to walk into a place. And I would also, again, just highlight the Well. I've been there, I've had lunch there, and it's a welcoming place. It feels good when I walk in. I don't feel like I'm being watched. I feel like I can just go into the door and walk in. And for a lot of people, you take that for granted. Some people think that security is for everyone, and it's not. Security can take many forms. The best form of security is customer service, right? It's service. It's saying, hey, you're welcome. How are you doing? How can I help you? Those are the things that we work towards in designing, and the work that we've done in DC and other places, we put that into practice in everything that we do.
Yeah, I remember, Marquise, we did a podcast together and we were talking about, your story in the lobby. I don't know if you want to share that, but I think it was very telling.
Yeah. I mean, I was in Detroit at one of the big hotels there, and I was walking in, and there was a couple coming out, and immediately told me to go get their car. I was not in any way dressed as a valet at all. I had a hat on, I had a coat on, I had just stepped out of my car. But that's not the first time that's happened. It happens so many times. And I'm sure, again, for women and minorities, the lobby can be the scariest place when you're transitioning between space, when you're going to your room. I've heard many women say that they felt uncomfortable. And so when you're designing these spaces, you need to design the lighting, the spacing, and think about those who may feel affected by the conditions that are being set. And it's the same way when I'm walking into a place, and I continue to get, whether it's policed or asked just strange questions because of the way conditions have been set. So it's a constant.
Yes. No, but I think it's super important that everyone remembers that there's multiple perspectives to how a space is used and how people feel. So thank you. Mm-hmm. Carolyn, tell us about one of your recent projects or your work that you want to highlight.
Sure, absolutely. So really, everyone has done an amazing job kind of threading some of the elements that we look at through both the lens of Ames Design Collective, where we really focus on workplace and lifestyle design. And then here you can see this wonderful environmental setting with turf. This is an acoustic product, and it was really based off of biophilic design. There's a wood look within the actual acoustic beam itself. Interestingly enough, this was digitally grown wood. So it's certainly biophilic, but it's also this really amazing technology story as well. But you can see in this space, we're looking at, again, this greater lens of how we as humans feel in the space. Proprioception, can I see myself? Can I see the wayfinding? The windows, we've got light levels all throughout the space. Speaking of lighting, and color is a big part of my work and my DNA. Light levels, your CRI values, your color rendering index is at a high rendering index, going at 90 or more to try to really see the color, the tactility, the finishes, the surfaces in a space. And again, just going through that entire lens with biophilic design and, layering not only, wood looks, plants. I'm glad that Kane brought up plants. Another thing that's so interesting to me about plants and ecology in our spaces, there is actual sound absorbing properties as well. So there's just so much that's so rich and nourishing, bringing in biophilia into our spaces. So it's definitely a lens that we've been working with. And again, really kind of focusing more specifically on the material and the product in the journey throughout all these projects. It's how can that product support our greater human health and well-being? Thinking about sound specifically in acoustics, we know that, through organizations like the International Well Building Institute, that having a really high noise reduction coefficient, that NRC value, 70 or more is typically really good in these workplace settings. So it's really important that while, again, we're sort of re-emerging and reintroducing into these spaces, that we feel this comfort. And again, the material and project story can really contribute to the space.
Amazing, thank you. And Kane, now you have somebody who takes care of all the plants, right? Don't you have one person?
Oh yeah, we've had her since day zero. Her name is Luz Lestrange. She's the most interesting woman I've ever met. She's our plant whisperer. She started in New York. She cares for our plants in Connecticut as well. She's actually heading to Costa Rica in a little bit for our new location that's coming there. And she is a lifelong gardener and botanist, and she maintains and cares for our plants, but just as she's taught us over time, is like plants give a lot to us, so like they also respond better like when we give to them. So this sounds crazy sometimes, but she sings to the plants, and like actually like overnight, like sings to them. They get baths, like, and it, you know, a lot of our New York space, for example, is subterranean. Almost over 50% of it's subterranean, and we have living plants in every single room. And people come in and they're like, "How are there so many living plants here?" And we have a rotation schedule for them. They get like taken care of at night. So while we take a lot from our plants, we also have we feel like we have the responsibility to give to them too, and to manage them and take care of them. But yes, Luz is an amazing woman and an amazing part of our team.
Makes me sad that I can't keep alive plants in my own house now that you say that, but that's amazing. So staying with you, Kane, for a second. So what has the response been to the well, and how have you pivoted? Sorry to use the word of 2020, but how have you adapted post-COVID and maybe rethought some things?
Yeah, we've rethought everything, to be honest. So, you know, we had actually New York, and Marquise, it makes me so happy that you feel welcome there, and that's why I'm in this business. So thank you for that. But in the time, you know, you visited, we were actually only open our first location, and this is it. That's our steam room and our relaxation room and some beautiful spaces, was only open for 5 months before the pandemic hit. So we were we were a very new baby. So we quickly closed our doors, like all of New York City did. And in a matter of weeks, sort of pivoted everything online immediately and put our practitioners online, put our programming online. We started doing support circles, and you know, we hosted a global meditation with Deepak Chopra with 250,000 people, and sort of very quickly just like pivoted to bring everything we could online and just remain and be that resource. We also had been working on amazing products like our supplements and our body oils and our essential oils. We created a hand sanitizer and a mask and developed a whole amazing line of immune supplements that we were able to move online. And really our team was so astronomically flexible and adaptable and passionate. And we quickly moved to really build an online presence, which was not in our immediate sort of plan. And the response we got was amazing. We started selling out of products and just got, you know, an amazing response from that. And then in the middle of the pandemic and sort of, you know, right in the middle of it, we were approached by All Bears Resorts and our friends there, who are dear friends of ours. We share many mutual friends there, Stacey. And they had seen sort of coming out of the summer that we were in the pandemic, that wellness had become like the number1 decision factor outside of like location for their travelers. And they really came to us and said, we really want to lean into wellness. We want to lean into health, but we know we're not an expert in it. So we developed a partnership with them and opened our first retreat center in Connecticut at the Mayflower Inn, which has been astronomically more successful than we ever could have thought from a financial perspective, from a press perspective, from a customer perspective. It has just gone absolutely gangbusters. I can't even get in to get a treatment. And I'm not saying that jokingly. I tried getting treatment last time I was there for work and could not get in. And what we saw and during the pandemic, after our bears came to us, we just got buried in a good way in so many inbounds from real estate developers and hospitality brands, realizing that their new residential buildings they were building, they really wanted an authentic wellness concept. Their new hotels they were building. And it wasn't like, hey, we just want a hotel gym or we just want, you know, a hotel spa. They were really saying our customer is so sophisticated in this area and this is such a priority. We want to do something absolutely like exceptional or next level with them. And so we've actually pivoted. We're working on multiple locations with our bears. We're building locations from everywhere from Aspen to, you know, cities like Miami and London, many with hotel partners, many with condo or real estate partners. We actually just signed our first residential deal where you can actually live at the well, which is really taking our philosophy of what we do in our spaces and translating it into a home and into condos. And what does it look like when every aspect of your home puts your wellness first? And it's really just been, you know, I'm very frank in this, as a young business owner, open for 5 months when the pandemic hit, my thought was like, we're done, right? Like we're a physical business. We have a really big rent in New York City for 15,000 square feet. Like we're going to go like it was a great run. Like, that's not going to survive. And we've actually come out of the pandemic so much stronger, and with so much more demand than even before. And it's honestly, I think, just consumer sentiment and what consumers are looking for and what they're prioritizing. And it's been, I feel lucky and privileged, and thankful, but also feel like, we've built an authentic brand that is very welcoming and very thoughtful and very diligent and high quality. And we've been able to really come out in a different place. So it's exciting. And
it's great.
We can't wait for the next couple of years.
And you've also, talking about making things more accessible, you also have opened it up, right? So it's not only members.
Yeah, we pivoted completely away from a membership model. One of the big things was, we did membership to drive community. And I think what we learned during the pandemic was we were wrong. It was a gating factor. And it actually drove this false exclusivity and this idea that we actually never wanted to happen. And so as founders, we really readjusted our whole business model to take away the membership. We lowered our prices so that it could be more accessible. We started putting, free services and content online and really readjusted it. And our business is doing better than it ever did before, right? And it just took that, I always say, I hate to be thankful for the pandemic, but in some ways, when it relates to my business, I'm very unthankful for obviously humanity. But when it comes to the well, we are not only a stronger company, but we are a better company that is better suited to achieve our mission and to help people prioritize their health. And that is a company that is for all because of what we had to go through the past 15 months. So there are some blessings as a business coming out of that, for sure.
Love it. Oh, Megan Dwyer is joining us, the Associate Content Director for ICFF. She's going to have some questions in a minute from the audience. Marquise, thank you so much, Kane. Marquise, your projects go beyond design, obviously, to really, as Kane was talking about, community. I want to bring you in because community is at the essence of everything that you do. What have been some lessons along the way from your various projects?
Yeah, core to the work that we do from a tactical standpoint, we're a design and research firm. So, we get out and we meet the people. We go to their homes, we go to different places that they're engaging. And so we had to pivot a lot of this, of course, online. And what that did for us is also just bring us closer into people's homes. Of course, the digital divide put some constraints in, but at the same time, it allowed us to continue to do the type of design research that we do. Some of the slides that you're putting up are a lot of other projects that I work on as well. Just going through pictures of it. But I think that for us, again, Kane, what you're saying, I call it the unfortunate gift of what happened. Really put it more of an acute awareness on the type of work that we do around health and wellness, around justice, around equity, around reimagining conditions for how we live in urban environments. And our business has grown so much coming out because I think there is just a next sense of awareness of, this is why you call Open Box, this is why you engage with our work, because I think we were just doing the type of work, I don't say we're cookie cutting, but we were getting to a place where we were simplifying everything we're doing. It's like, it worked over here, let's just repeat that. And then all of a sudden everything blew up and we realized that you just can't repeat everything that you've done and that you have to reimagine. And that really opened up the door for so many new conversations for us and for the future of the work that we do.
Love it. And Susan, I know we touched briefly on it when you first talked, but you're incorporating more hospitality. You're looking at other industries to again focus on I think the underlying theme here is focusing on the person, right? Focusing on the human, and bridging the gap between the spaces and them. How has it changed over the last how has healthcare changed over the last 5 to 8 years? And can you expand a little bit more on, we talked about flow, but what else are you really doing, in terms of creating those spaces that people in the worst of times can feel good?
Yeah, certainly in the past year and a half, some of the changes have been meteoric, not at all what we anticipated. But I really think that there are two areas that we've seen the biggest changes in, and those relate to both patient empowerment and technology, and really the intersection of those two things. And you think about the time when you would defer to your primary care or family physician, and where they thought you might want to go to a hospital or the treatment that you should get. But with the availability of transparency in data and patient outcomes, rating systems, akin to Yelp, all of those things are helping patients really research and do their due diligence to find out where the best care would be for them. And they're making those choices. And certainly with new disruptors coming into this healthcare space, like Amazons of the world, healthcare is now going to the patient, where in the past, the patient went to the healthcare. And when you think about it too, who would have ever imagined that your local supermarket would deliver patient care?
Yeah.
So things have really changed. You also think about wearable biometric devices that are providing patients with information about their own health. Telemedicine has exploded and allows patients to access care no matter where they live. I mean, we have been working with IBM Watson in the AI area, and really what's so exciting about all of that is sharing what we know, the research that we're doing, the treatments that we're providing to our patients in our facilities can be taken out to more community hospitals, rural hospitals. We're going to be able to share that knowledge with, family physicians that are out in communities that would never have had access to that before. So that's so exciting to us. And, you also think about technologies that are monitoring people. There's more research, there's healthcare availability that hadn't been there before. Patients are really empowered to take a more active role in their care. And we're also seeing a shift from the patient setting in a hospital to the home. And really, that's the ideal place for it to happen. When you go to a hospital, there are so many risks in terms of infection that we want to avoid. And so we're seeing that happening. I mean, even with things as acute as bone marrow transplantation. So there's a lot happening. There have been things that have been happening over the years, but there's been a huge acceleration in that area.
Wonderful. So great to hear. And Carolyn, to round it out, what are you seeing trending, or I hate the word trending, but seeing influential in terms of materials in wellness?
Sure, absolutely. Such a great conversation, by the way. I just wanted to say that. And, thinking about the material journey and how that can be supportive. I was just reading something on indigo, which we know is a time-honored dyeing process that will be bio-based. So these new technologies that, again, are supporting a more thoughtful process, creating our materials. And again, thinking really thoughtfully on acoustics, particularly. I'm hearing some really great points. Suzanne was saying, we're thinking about the patient being in control. So let's think a little bit, we'll pivot into our workspaces. It's ourselves in control. Can you choose a zone that's maybe more collaborative, maybe that you're somebody that really needs that stimulation, you need music, you need bright color, a little bit of pep in your step to get going? Or are you somebody that seeks something a little bit more calm, something a little bit more quiet and discerning for heads down work? We're again asking a lot of questions that, thinking about light levels, for example, we can choose our light levels. We chose our light levels today simply to even be prepared for this Zoom conversation here. Could we possibly dial in our user choice comfort for sound and acoustic levels? Some of us, like myself, again, I would be on more of the quiet side, but I know others that prefer a range of noise and reverberation. So, really just starting to think about the material journey and how it can support Again, not just the idea of the way something looks, but the way that we feel as humans in a space. We all have different sensitivities. We all have different abilities, but we were really thoughtful on this idea of the sensory integration with the work, that if you can take biophilia and you can take tactility and you can take sound strategy and put that in a space, maybe everyone can arrive at that feeling of comfort and even derive a joyful experience, which would be ideal.
Amazing. Well, thank you. So well said, all of you. We're going to take a minute. Do we have any questions from the audience?
We do, and we have a lot of really nice comments complimenting this session. So good job, everybody. Let's see. We have a question. Somebody asked, how does the panel feel about wellness as it relates to designers / creatives / personally? What are some of the challenges and opportunities? Anyone want to take that?
Kane, what are the challenges and opportunities?
Yeah, we're for sure. You know, I always pseudo quote RuPaul and how are you going to love someone else if you can't love yourself? And we always say, how are you going to take care of someone else if you don't take care of yourself? And you know, I think what our industry, you know, hospitality in general is a tough industry for sure. The design and the creative design industry and the creative industry also very tough in the sense of like you're you know, outside of just time spent and work hours and that it's a very laborious process, and it's a very I would say, you know, it can be stressful, it can be taxing, there's a lot of emotions in it, there can be physicality into it as you're looking at spaces too. So for us, we think a lot as it relates to not just our creative and design team, but all of our team, of making sure that we invest and recharge and take care of ourselves as much as we possibly can. And that's culturally and the way that we work as an organization, you know, respecting people's vacation times, actually giving people their weekends so they're not working, allowing them to use our services or invest in themselves, like creating, you know, we've had group therapy for our whole team since the pandemic started, and it is everyone's favorite thing. It happens twice a week. It's paid for by the organization, and it's, you know, and it's changed our whole team dynamic, right? Giving them an outlet for something like that. So even, you know, in everything that we do, we invest in our team members, from making sure they have the best health care to making sure that the uniforms they wear are organic and good for them, to making sure they have access to good food, and so on and so forth. But I think as you're looking for business owners, consultants, creatives who are out there in the field, you know, my recommendation is like, you can only, your work will only be as good as the time that you give yourself. And so making and carving out space to recharge, to invest in yourself is probably the most important thing you can do for your creative process. Finding a community of like-minded individuals. You'll see the #1 stat on all things and wellness that people don't talk about is if you're twice as likely to achieve any wellness goal if you have a support system, and you will actually never achieve wellness without that. So investing in community of like-minded individuals also super important and something we think about a lot.
Love it. Well, you're probably going to get a lot of questions if you're hiring, Kane, because that sounds amazing.
Always. We're hiring so many people. Please go to thewell.com. Yes.
But I think you just brought it right back home, too. It's all about the people. It's all about taking care of each other, ourselves, about community. So thank you for wrapping that up with a pretty bow for me. And thank you, Carolyn, Marquise, Susan, and of course, Kane, for being here. Such a wonderful conversation. And we could go on for hours, but I'm being told that we can't. So we are going to wrap it. And now, thank you all so much. And now we are going to move on to a conversation with Moy in the green room, which is pink.